Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Character Building. We're continuing this week in the design of a whole character from beginning to end. Last week we talked about creating construction sheets, where we began the process of taking our successful rough sketch and begin outlining and making definitive decisions, things like proportion and just kind of trying to outline for people the general, for someone who's trying to recreate it, the general notes on what this character is like. And as you can see, I filled up the whole page here, mostly with, you can see this diagram of the leg movement, because I would like to be able to take this character, and it's my goal in one sense to take this character and animate it eventually by hand. And in order to do that, especially with a character this unique, figuring out how she's going to walk, for example, is a big deal. Considering that most characters in an animation have to walk at least. So for my purposes, I thought this is going to be something that's really important to figure out. And so I did a lot of referencing on different ostrich leg positions and that kind of thing. And I needed to figure out what some of the limits of the leg and the range of motion is. So I came up with, a kind of not a walk cycle per se, but, 3 different stages of what a typical leg movement would be. And from that, hopefully someone who's looking at this will then be able to tell that, okay, this is how it's analogous to a human leg in many ways, and this is how it's not moving like a human leg. So that's what I came up with for that, and it takes a big chunk of the page. But I still have some space left over, and I'm leaving it open mostly because I don't know how this is going to look in 3 dimensions yet. I don't know if it's going to work in 3 dimensions, and if I'm going to do animation, of this character, I should at least be able to figure that out. So that's kind of what we're going to end up doing this episode today. We're going to do a turnaround. So here you can see I've copied the profile view from the previous drawing, and I've set up horizontal lines at certain key anatomical points. At the shoulders, the hips, the pit of the neck, places like that where you would have a turning edge or something that identifies the form more distinctly than other parts. And that's what I've done there. So you can see the knee as well as the ankle. I think down there you can see where it's starting to get toward the ankle. In a side note, in a previous career track, I had found myself in the engineering field. So the whole idea of doing different views, left, right, front, and top and whatnot, it was not unfamiliar to me. So it did give me something of a leg up in understanding turnarounds. But still, the idea is clear here, right? We have to see it in all directions. And especially important if you're doing CGI modeling, right? Because in the computer program, you would need having accurate models drawn both ways first. And it does help to draw it out first. It helps you understand things on an intuitive level. And after doing this, I must say, I understand how something like this would physiologically work now. This kind of a creature. So sweeping in from the chest there across the torso. And this is a first pass. There were several other passes I did after this, and you won't see that in this video. But just know that, you're still figuring things out here, right? Which is also why I'm using a broad brush, to not let myself focus so much on the muscles and the details. I just want to get overall muscle body mass, right? I want to get the big pieces to line up. Upper leg, lower leg, arm, upper arm, lower arm, all that stuff, to match up in a very broad sense. Again, hierarchical, right? So if I were to use a say smaller brush, for example, it would kind of incline my mind to think smaller. So that's, again, I'm actually assisting myself by using a more diffuse brush in this case. And maybe your mind works differently, and you can just go straight to a smaller brush. I do that sometimes myself as well in different circumstances. It all is kind of relative to what you're trying to achieve and the way your mind is processing things at the moment. Sometimes if I'm thinking more about shape instead of form, then I'll go with the smaller line too, for different reasons. I think it's worth recalling too, as you can see, I'm working through the legs here. That in studying, trying to figure out how things are going to work in all different angles, that I did end up referring back to my morphology video, and at least the stuff that was in there, to try and figure out, this what the how to blend the two halves of this figure together in a way that still felt believable. So, and that was what was going through my mind in the creation of the profile view in the first place. But again, I still didn't know that was going to work, how well it was going to work in the other view. So, still is necessary to go through this. It should also be noted that although we're putting a big deal of emphasis on precision in both views, is that it doesn't necessarily have to be. You can, by design, cheat. Say like Mickey Mouse ears look the same from the front and the side, but you do those with a purpose behind them. So just want to make sure I noted that. Another thing I learned while doing this was interesting, was how the lower part of the foot functions on an ostrich. It's almost like this triangular or pyramid-shaped mass at the bottom that kind of represents where the ball of our foot would be, like underneath the big toe, for example. And that the way that works is it's a machine, really. It's its own kind of machine, and it has its own pivots around it. It's like almost I want to say like a piston in a steam engine, for example. The way it operates and it functions, and the way it rotates the toes of the foot. And in learning that, but again, that came all from observation of different photographs and seeing what happened. And as the ostrich moved its leg from a standing position to, say, a raised position. And that will end up all being in the finalized version of the construction notes from the drawing you saw before. There's a more updated version than the version I presented in the beginning. That's actually the final turnaround, as you can look up there to your right now. That's actually that's after several passes at this. And you can see I've refined the anatomy down after I've pinned several things down. Broadly speaking, I was able to go back in and keep working it down and refining it to the point where, in fact, I may even go back and simplify this, because I think I actually drew in too much detailed anatomy just so I could had it understood what the volume meant in my mind. I'd like to simplify it down a little bit. So I went too far in one direction, and so I pulled it back. I'm going to probably pull it back a little bit more in the final design. So I want this to be more of a cartoony character. I don't want this to be like a Marvel superhero type character, which is almost what she looks like in the version up in the right there. So you can expect to go through several revisions until you finalize something. And that's about it for this week. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to talk about expression sheets for like the head and performance-based references. So we're actually going to start using these more detailed construction models to actually make something a little bit more fun. This is a little drier kind of subject, but once you move past this, you can do something more fun. So I'll talk to you guys next week, and have a good one. If you like this video and want to see more, click subscribe. Want to tell me what to draw? You can. Click on the link to my Patreon page.